I don't have an agenda in my head because I figure you guys know what we're talking about tonight.
It's a pretty short one.
So I'll just give one quick update just to make sure you all know where we stand. We've called a special council meeting for Friday at 3, and this coming Friday. And that meeting will focus, not entirely, but almost entirely on how we're going to manage the end of year cash flow questions. And we have an agreement, it looks like, we've been recommended to the board of Pasumsic for the plan that we've put together. As of today, we got word that their smaller team that has to make recommendations to the board recommended the plan that we put together with them. And what it meant, I'll just give you the quick version so you're caught up. This is really the quick version. Today we paid off the $1.8 million line of credit. And by Monday, we will be almost at zero in our account. Well, so we will literally start the year at zero. And we will begin deficit spending on day 1 or day 2. And so we'll have to access, assuming we get approval on Wednesday, the 2nd of July, from the board of Pasumsic, we will effectuate that LOC immediately and begin drawing on it in order to make our necessary payments for the year. But honestly, that's a lot better than I thought it was going to be a month and a half or 2 months ago, when I thought we'd be finishing the year several $1 million in the red. And the way we did that was by and large, a big chunk of it, not all of it, but a big chunk of it was consolidating all of the various bank accounts that have been created over the years as sinking funds, putting all of that money in the cash account and using that money to float our cash flow. So that's why we had enough money. And it turns out it was very important to do so, because the charter forbids us from taking a new note and paying off the old note with the new note. So it was actually really important that we were able to squeeze through, pay off this note this week, and we'll close it out, and then we'll start with a new note next week.
So there's no money set aside for like the Vector truck.
There's no money for anything.
Gotcha.
Right. And worse than
all those were
it was all pulled in.
Okay.
The council acted initially simply to pull all that cash and did not change the obligation on the balance sheet. But on Chip's recommendation, the council will consider on Friday actually removing the obligation from the balance sheet as well, because it just makes our balance sheet horrible if it looks like we are in arrears to all those accounts.
Right.
And then we will, after we stabilize the cash position, then the council will have to immediately come back to the question of how do we begin planning now so that we can manage things like a Vector truck, which at this point, the only way you can do it in the foreseeable future is the same way we just did a fire truck. You have to get permission and go to bond for a big ticket item like that. So that's kind of where we stand at the moment. Okay. So the thing that most impacts you all is to know that we're going to ask council to unobligate the obligation committed by previous councils to those various funds in water and sewer. There's no legal impediment to that because all the money was spent on water and sewer. It just wasn't spent on the particular thing that the council hoped it was going to be put aside for. So there's no reason we can't. The way we covered all the deficits was by spending out of the operating budget, right? Mm-hmm. So basically we've spent all that money on water and sewer. We just haven't done it by the way we intended, which was to put it aside for future spending.
Wait, can I ask you a quick question? So on those obligations, as it were, are they still in the 25-26 budget, or will we work on removing those?
I suspect we will have to remove the obligations we made, similar obligations we made in 25-26.
Until we get a better handle.
Until we get a solid handle on this. Yeah.
If you're going to remove from water and sewer, the obligation that you were going to put 5% in a capital fund.
Yeah, that has nothing to do with anything we've talked about so far.
Okay.
The 5% is in the budget. It's protected in water and sewer. We've raised the rates, we think, enough to cover it. And the intention will be that that 5% will come in and will be protected in the front fund, you know, that.
Well, you have to create
I
a
know,
fund for
I
it.
know. But we're not doing it now.
Right. But if you're, all I'm saying is if you decide that you're not going to fund that, then the rates of
Have to
water
come
and
down.
sewage
I get
should
it.
come down
We will fund it.
for that.
We will fund it. We built a budget on the assumption that we've got to start being long-term responsible here. And, you know, I'd love to have seen us be able to do 15. I think it was the right decision to do 5%. So it's the other side, actually, where I think we're going to have to unobligate some of the obligations we made in the budget for 25, 26, because I just don't see how we're going to. And actually, it's a conversation for another day, because I'm really not sure the best strategy for that yet. And it's really the finance team's working on that. Because, you know, either we're going to have to raise the tax rate slightly in order to cover the $220,000 mistake on how we estimated the revenue from the state fund, or we're going to find money to make it up in the budget. And I suspect the only real way to do that quickly and easily would be to de-obligate those funding commitments. But I think we're going to have to look at that probably next week or the week after.
And I do have some questions about the loans that you intended to take. I assume the loans aren't part of the 1.8 million payoff.
That's the next step that you should know about, actually. That's where I was going next. We'll take that initial $2.725 million loan right away next week, assuming it's approved by the bank. We'll begin living on that right away, and we will spend through pretty much all of it by the end of August, I suspect. And that includes the remainder of what we have to pay for the causeway, and it doesn't really include the water tower remainder, because that's going on the line of credit, which we have to pay in October. But the causeway project is built into that 2.725 million. In effect, living on that 2.725 million.
That's a line of credit.
It is a line of credit in anticipation of tax income. And the basis for that line of credit is that it will balance by the end of the year. Then we will go to the voters on the 7th of July. We will warn a special election, and we will go to the voters on the 12th of August with a request for several loan items. The first of which, I don't know what number they'll actually be in, but the first of which is to let us borrow $1 million to satisfy the due to others line on the sewer balance sheet. Right now, the sewer balance sheet says that it owes the general fund $1 million. So we'll take that loan, spread it out over 10 to 20 years, and then that money will be available for us as cash for the rest of the year to spend to fund our operations budget. Go ahead.
How are the sewer rates that we've already established going to pay for that? We're going to have to cut something out of the
Either we're going to have to cut a little bit out of the water and sewer budget to cover the principal and interest payments for a year.
just be sewer, right?
I'm sorry, sewer.
Yeah.
You're correct. Or we're going to have to slightly raise the sewer rates again, which we can do every quarter. We have the capability,
Yeah.
but we wouldn't even try to do that until September.
Yeah.
So we'll have to wait and see how that works out. And I think we're going to need to do a deeper dive into the water and sewer budget between now and the end of August.
Well, and that's right. That's the thing. I mean, the way these budgets, there's really no explanation of what's in each line item.
No, that's right. So right now, Paul, I hear that loud and clear.
Yeah.
And if we can get through this immediate hump,
Yeah.
the next project, I think, unless something else surprises me, the next project will be CHIP to begin working on consolidating lines in the general ledger and clarifying what's in what, and creating a budget that's actually readable and understandable.
But
Go ahead.
shouldn't that fall to Tom to say this
Yes,
line
Tom will
item-
have to be deeply involved in it.
Right.
But CHIP is the one who's going to reform our accounting.
Right, reform the accounting, but that doesn't explain, okay, I'm just gonna pull a number out, right? In line item 1,000, I have 10 shovels, 4 rakes.
Correct. Tom will absolutely have to be deeply involved in that
Right.
conversation
Okay.
to help us understand what the current practice has been
Right.
in the process of reforming it for the future. And then, actually, Tom will have to do it there on the water and sewer side and in the public works side in the operations budget, and every other department head
Right.
will have to do the same thing
Exactly.
with CHIP. So it will be an intense process, I expect, to try and come up with those reformatted.
Right. And then that should be, just a recommendation, that should be a policy going forward, that every year the budget's built, the department heads turn in a worksheet for each line item detailing.
That's where we're headed.
Perfect.
Yeah. And this year will be we're going to try this out as we go along year.
Right.
My goal, we'll see, I've had a lot of goals that I haven't met in the last 3 months, but my goal is that we would start the budgeting process by mid to late September at the latest. Because we need, in my judgment, we need 3 to 4 months this year. I mean, honestly, I wish we were starting 3 months ago, and we're just not there yet.
From my experience, the hardest part is developing. After that first year of development,
Then it'll be pro forma.
it's a piece of cake after that.
Right. Well, in some ways, that's what if we weren't working on a 30-year-old general ledger
Right.
and practice, it's similarly easy. I mean, when Becky was doing this with the department heads, as I understand it, it was kind of that way, right? Everybody just kind of took the lines, looked at how they should be adjusted. I have some questions about zero-based budgeting. I've been listening to a series of municipal podcasts from other municipal leaders who say, if you really want to do this right, don't just take last year's budget and build off of last year, start over and say, in order to accomplish this goal, what do we need to do?
Exactly.
Now, I'm hoping that CHIP will help us get at least a half step in that direction this year, right? By simply reforming the general ledger will be a major step in that direction. And it will force us out of the habit of simply saying this line is going to be this much plus this percentage.
So, just food for thought, what we would do is at the end of every quarter, we would predict our expected actuals in each line item for the budget year.
Absolutely.
And if we had an expected actual in this one that was going over, we had to find a place to cut it
Somewhere else. This is what we've been begging for a year.
Right.
At least in my time here. Others have been asking for something similar for longer than that. But since I've been on council, we started asking for this about this time last year.
Yep.
And I think we can get there with CHIP's help. So that's the $1 million. Then we'll also ask voters for permission to take a $1.8 million note and spread it over 10 to 20 years. And the rationale for that is that that's the deficit that remained after we took all the other money out of all the other accounts. The general fund effectively still ended up $1.8 million in the hole, right? So we will take that money, and it's a requirement of the line of credit we're going to get with Pasumsic, that all of that money, the $1.8 million that we take, will be applied to the principal on the $2.75 million line of credit. And then effectively what we've said, at that point we've now maxed out that line of credit. We can't borrow any more against it, even if we pay it down, because it's not a revolving fund, right? But we think that at that point, the taxes and the water and sewer income that are coming in will be enough to carry us, together with the $1 million that's coming in from the sewer. We're thinking it will carry us through the dry times roughly from January to April.
So we're okay. I think I understand. 2.725. We get that first of next week.
Yes.
We turn around, take 1.8 from that money, give it back to Pasumsic to put on the principal.
No, not at all. We paid that $1.8 million today.
No, I'm talking about on the.
No. The 1.8 that I'm talking about is a loan that we will take, assuming the voters approve it in the fall.
Okay.
And that money, as soon as we have it, will be applied to the principal on the line of credit.
On the line of credit. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so we'll take it from there,
Yeah.
put it back into on the line of 2.75 line of credit.
Pay it down, and that way we won't be paying on nearly $2 million worth of interest
Right.
the rest of the year.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
And then the other ones are well, actually, it's not inconsequential for you all. The other problem that we're going to have to deal with in that special election is the fact that we have the ability by the voters' action in 2021 to borrow $3 million to pay for the water tower expense. In October, we owe $2.4 million of that to pay off the line of credit. That note cannot be extended, just like the current line of credit that we paid off today was not able to be extended without voter action. Because once you go over a year, it's considered a long-term loan. And the charter forbids us from taking a loan, from making a loan a long-term loan without voter approval. So if all had gone according to the original plan, we would have had the Vermont Bond Bank lined up so that we'd be in the August pool. They'd hand us the long-term, the money that we're financing over 20, 30 years, whatever it's going to be, and we'd use that to pay off the line of credit. But because we don't have that arranged, and it's going to take at least until next April to see any of that money, we have to do something in the interim to pay off the line of credit for construction of the water tower. And so the way we're going to do that is we're going to ask voters for permission, effectively, to bridge to the bond income. We're going to ask for a 1-year note or shorter for $3 million, whatever it is we need. I don't know the numbers yet, but it'll be somewhere between 2.1 and $3 million. We'll take that note and pay off the line of credit, and then be working steadily on trying to get the Vermont Bond Bank lined up so that as soon as we get that one, we can pay off the short-term note from Pasumsik. But even that short-term bridge note is outside of charter if we don't go to the voters for action first. That's the challenge that we're dealing with on that one. And then the last one we got to deal with is the fire truck, which is, we have permission to borrow 800 and we need 875 roughly. So I got to ask the voters for another, we have to ask the voters for another $75,000 of borrowing power in order to finance the fire truck when it shows up. And that debt, principal and interest payments on that are roughly figured into the budget for 25-26, which is because, I mean, I made what was literally, Tom and I sat down and tried to come up with a wild-ass guess for what we thought principal and interest payments might be on approximately this amount of money, because we had no way to know at that point. And I think and as I look more closely at it, I think we were actually close. So
it's 4 items for the vote.
That's, yes.
Okay.
There may be one more that we'll have to look at around that question of whether or not we need to adjust the 25-26 property tax rate to correct for the mistake that was made on the budget, for the operating budget. Or are we going to try to adjust the budget itself and lower expenses? Or that one I don't know yet. Okay? There's no fast way to describe this, I'm discovering.
No.
But I think that gives you an overall sense of what's going on Friday and the big things that your work is going to be impacted by.
And are they, from what I read that you sent us, there are stipulations, like we have to keep up with things. We have to give them projections. We have to give them quarterly, like
Believe me,
what's
the bank is going to be far more invested going forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm all for it. And one of the things, I think the requirement I appreciate the most is you cannot cancel the contract with Nemrick unless we're in agreement that you're under control. So Chip stays on the scene as a requirement for this. And I've had the conversation with him about how willing he is, and I think he's actually having fun with this. I think it's a challenge he's enjoying.
Sometimes it's fun to be things like
Yes.
With respect to the $3 million loan,
Yeah.
the voters originally said up to $5 million could be borrowed, about up to 400. It was actually,
I think it was 485 or
something, right?
485.
But let's say $5 million. Up to $5 million could be borrowed to be spent on the water tower, minus any grants that we got, and we got an ARPA grant. I think it was for 1.3 million, and we got some other grants.
There were some other odds and ends. Yeah, they add up to almost 2 million.
Yeah, I think that the voters, in thinking about whether or not to go along with the 3 million, should be able to see the total the subtractions for for what we did get from other sources. And then we only had a $2.4 million line of credit, which I'm told that we're just about ready to exhaust. But that doesn't add up to $3 million. And then I was told that maybe there were some payments made by Jim prior to getting the line of credit and paid out some things on that original water tower. But I think that the voters should be able to see how much exactly was spent before and on what with respect to the water tower, so that they know that the $5 million total limit is not being exceeded. And with respect to the 1.8 million.
So hold on, let's just do them one at a time.
Okay.
I think you're right, and I pray that we'll be able to do what you're talking about, because I think a worksheet that describes exactly that is useful. I do think there's a gap. There's an obvious gap between the line of credit of 2.4 and the $3 million borrowing power in rough terms that we have. I suspect, because Chip tells me I should, that it was a combination of spending that was done on the water tower before the line of credit was arranged, and perhaps some payments that were made. And I don't know that yet. But if he's right and we can justify a $3 million loan, then we will do that, if I have anything to say about it, because that's another $500,000 or $600,000 or $700,000 that the city spent out of its own reserve that's creating our cash flow crisis.
But it should be proven before you ask.
Without a doubt. Believe me, Ann.
Okay.
Everything I'm doing here is all about Chip trying to show us actual numbers.
Okay. And with respect to the 1.8 million the other day, it was established that about 1.3 million of that was probably due to that error that was made with respect to the state municipal adjustment of taxes. So that accounts 1.3, and then I was told the other 0.5 million was due to money that the general fund had paid for water and sewer. But the reality is that that would be a double count, because when the $1 million is paid back, when the sewerage pays back the $1 million, that makes water, sewer, and the general fund equal. And you can't double count and then say, and the other $0.5 million from the general fund was monies that were paid for water and sewerage, because that's not fair.
Well, it doesn't matter in the sense that no one is talking at this point, as far as I can tell, no one's recommending, and I'm certainly not recommending, that we ask water and sewer to pay more than that $1 million. However, that doesn't mean that that was the limit of what was actually, I mean, I don't know, and I don't expect to be able to find out in the near term how that other $500,000 got spent. I think it could have been sloppy budgeting. I think it could have been, I don't know what it is, right? It doesn't matter at the end of the day, because we need to get that money back into our system somehow.
But we should be able to account for how it went wrong, because other than
Yeah, I hear you, Ann, but just keep in mind the mountain we're climbing here. I can't do it all in 2 weeks, which is what I've got to warn this special election.
Okay.
And all the language has to be in place by July 7th to warn that election. So we're not going to get to the answer to that question. I hope we'll get to the answer to your first question, which is, what was your first question?
My first question is how, if the line of credit
Yes.
is 2.4 that's being
Yes, I think we should be able to get to that answer, I hope, in time to warn that election and to help interpret it in public in the intervening month and a half that we have before the election happens, or 5 weeks. But I just want to set your expectations. I can't imagine a situation in which, given the staffing reality that we have right now, we can go find the rest of what you're talking about in the next 2 weeks.
Well, then I'm only saying that when people explain what the 1.8 million comes from, we shouldn't try to explain it by the extra 0.5 million coming from payments of water and sewer bills, because that's being accounted for
Okay,
by
I hear
1
you.
million.
And Chip's gonna have to help me with language for this, and I will ask him to be precise, and we all can ask him too. But because precise is relative, right? We don't know right now how it actually got created. So I'm not prepared to surmise whether it was water and sewer or anything else. I just don't know enough.
Okay.
So my answer is gonna be, I don't know, it doesn't matter, we need the 500 grand back.
I hear you.
Okay.
I just not.
All right, I want to move us along.
Sure.
And we're going to have plenty more time to discuss all of this on Friday afternoon with both council and another task force meeting, right? And then we got to work our butts off next week and the week after to get ready to warn the special election. But one mountain at a time. So, my question is, what do you all want to start in? Do you want to do water ordinance stuff tonight?
According to the agenda that John sent out,
Yes, please.
develop and recommend meter installation plan was the first thing, then water ordinance revision and updates, and then the last thing was budget review and policies. So those are the three things that he had on this agenda. So the first two are me, so I'll just
Please,
go.
have at it.
So as far as develop and recommend meter installation plan, we know that some emails have gone around, and looks like the consensus now is we're just gonna start with a new list. And that we're gonna put out a notice with an email address. People will email in their request for a meter. You're gonna do the inspections. I forget what the email said. But when somebody sends one in, you're gonna go see if it'll fit and all that stuff,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, we'll do the inspection. We can gain two different things. I know we talked about
Yeah.
maybe not doing the lead and copper at the same time, but
Right.
we're gonna gain any kind of information we can
Right.
at that time.
Right.
And
So that idea of doing the lead and copper question is not on the
So
table?
I wouldn't say it's not on the table. My response to that was, I personally don't want to see lead and copper slowed up if people are slow in getting meter requests in. We
Yes.
need to hammer on becoming compliant.
Yes.
I mean, if it's saying to 1 year, 2 year guys, 1 hour every day, you're gonna drive this loop, you're gonna knock on the door or hang a door hanger, whatever it is, you know.
Yep.
The ordinance is pretty
Clear.
There's civil penalties for not allowing us in. So we don't want to have to do that, but that can be the wording on the door hanger.
Absolutely.
So
Okay, so when are you thinking that these notices would go out? Would it go as with the billing the next quarter? Before?
do we have that? I mean, with
Those things all get hand stuffed, right?
Because we have a list of the unchecked house properties, correct? I'm assuming Stacy can probably,
Well,
or you just throw it in everyone.
well, that's probably the simplest, because when we sent out the notifications, whether they were galvanized needing replacement or an unknown,
Yeah.
there was no way to have her separate out a mailing. So literally, I had half my staff in our office at the Public Works Garage stuffing envelopes, going through the whole list.
So,
It
yeah,
was
I mean, 'cause
monotonous. So
anybody
it'd be
that's been
easier to just
inspected.
send it out to everybody, and if people have already done it, then
They'll know.
disregard it, they'll
they've
know.
done it, Yeah.
If we've got a whole list of the people who have complied, why don't we just mail a separate mailing to the people who haven't?
well, see, that's the problem. You can't just, I can ask.
You don't think we
again.
can sort it
I don't
by-
think we can sort it that way.
Why not? I can tell you.
I'm not
to
an
scan-
Emmerich, I'm not the one downstairs that print.
We should be able to sort it that way because we know we can export NEMRIC into a spreadsheet. And once it's in a spreadsheet,
Well,
we can sort it.
maybe it'd be a Chip question, because
Chip could do this for
We
us.
can
this is-
export it and just, alphabetize it because it's a CSV
Then you
file.
can use
So we
Excel.
can use Excel.
That's
So
right.
we can meld it. I mean, I can do
It's
that.
not what we did the last time.
No, but I think we can do it more easily this time.
But you've got a lot of them done, right? Maybe 50%?
Yeah.
And our next billing, come on, guys.
58%.
Okay, 58%. When's our next billing? That's August.
Right.
So you're kicking this down the road till
No,
September.
I'm not saying kick it down the road.
Yeah, so I think
Right.
we
I'm
do that.
asking, right.
Right.
We've got the list of the people who have responded, the people who haven't responded, and we can get their addresses. It's in, when
Were you
Stacy-
able to come up with any list of people who have responded and said they want it?
I didn't work on that at all.
Okay,
Well, so you're
but-
talking about two different things. You're talking about the meter list. This is the
No,
lead and
I'm
copper.
talking about lead and copper, specifically email for lead and copper, mail for lead and copper.
Right, but we don't have a list of who said they want.
No, okay, lead and copper is a study. You have to, every
Right,
single person has to
right,
submit.
Right, but the meter list, only shows if they had the lead and copper survey done.
Yeah.
Right.
So we've got the list of the people who don't have them done by melding the two lists. So we've got a list that everybody on it
So you're
has
saying take the two lists and merge them.
merge them and pull all the ones who haven't responded and email to them or mail to them.
Well,
we've
we can do
got-
that with the lead, just lead and copper.
Just lead and copper, that's what I'm saying. That's what I thought we were talking about.
Yeah.
Am I confused?
well, I think we're talking about both, right?
Yeah.
Because I was talking about meters.
Yeah.
I was talking about lead and copper. If lead and copper has to be done,
Correct.
then we do
So that's the
lead-
one, I see, okay.
Yeah, do lead and copper first. That will enable Tom to go in, find out what's there, so it will give us the basis for knowing on meters going forward. You also can talk to the people, as Tom, I thought, was it your email or Corey's email? I got confused.
Well, it says Tom Bernier, but it was
It's
set
not-
up, that email was, that Newport Water Department was set up as to go to the garage. So
Okay.
you're actually
It's Corey.
you pulled Corey into the.
Okay, so Corey responded to that. Yeah, well, it
Which
was
is fine,
signed.
because he's my go-to, he's the one
Yeah.
that took the.
Okay.
And it was clear at the
implemented it.
very end. I mean, I thought it was Tom till I got to the very end. It
Yeah.
said Corey, and then I'm
Yeah.
going, okay, reverse here.
Yeah.
So Corey is going out with the crew. And if we mail all the people, we'll have street addresses, we'll have them go and hit those people first. I think that's the best way, find out, because obviously if we put a meter in, we probably know what they have.
Right. So I'll use our house as an example. So we requested a meter. We're not on the meter requested list, but they knocked on our door and we let them in for the lead and copper.
Yeah.
So,
And somewhere that got noted in a spreadsheet? That
Well,
somebody
I haven't
here
seen the
has?
lead and
The
copper
lead and copper
spreadsheet.
did. See, that's when we initiated the lead and copper, the problem was, if they call a wastewater plant, I'm assuming Jason's writing the
Yeah.
information down, so he's got the people's address and
Yeah.
phone number or email. Other than that, we have no means of contacting anybody. That's why when we initiated the lead and copper, we figured we're gonna catch a few things here. We're gonna get a picture of it,
Yep.
we're gonna get your email or phone
Right.
number, so now we don't have to keep going and knock on the door. We can send you an email or call you and say, hey, we'd like to set up an appointment to install the meter, especially if we've already got the picture and we know what
Right.
we're looking at.
So, right, I'm trying to remember if, I don't know who the two guys were. I didn't catch their names or remember them, I guess. What they asked for, if they asked for that information. But we haven't seen the lead and copper spreadsheet, have we? Only Patrick has?
Patrick has it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So does the lead and copper has addresses on it also? Addresses and names or just?
If we actually physically talked to them
Right,
and went through.
right. So it's a matter of taking the lead and copper and comparing it to all of our billing addresses
Yeah.
and removing them and then sending the remainder out. So not the meter spreadsheet, but the billing
Yeah.
addresses and then, okay.
But we should be able to do that because NIMRIC has all sorts of sorts on water and sewer.
Okay.
The one I have gives addresses only. And then these location markers where you can see they went down streets because numerically it follows on the street.
Yeah.
But we don't have people's names.
Okay.
So, that makes it sort of dicey, but then we can go back through because we've got the account number so you can pull that out. It's a matter of whether, we have the time to access all of the NIMRIC files.
Right.
But if we know how many people we need on the lead and copper,
Yeah.
which is the thing that's going to drop dead as far as I know,
Yeah.
and it's going to give us a base for a whole lot of potential meters.
So when does the first meter get installed?
We don't know yet. We're not there yet. Don't go there yet.
Okay.
So what I want to know is, let's say somebody discovers they've got lead. Then what? We discover they've got lead pipes. What happens with that information?
Well, for now, we'd be holding on to it. There's no monies out there as of yet.
If they wanted it corrected, they'd have to do it.
They'd have to do it themselves.
Is the city, I don't think the city's responsible for that,
No.
right?
No, we
Only to the curbs.
are
So-
only to the curb stop.
Yeah.
So
And
the
then the little area around a meter, if there's a meter.
And do we know about our connections to curb stops? Do we know how many of those are lead? The ones that we are responsible for?
Currently, there is no lead.
Okay, so the city's clean in this, but the compliance issue is that we haven't informed our customers that they may have lead in their house and they're responsible to fix it, and we hope they will.
So what we're supposed to be doing, we don't know that the city doesn't because we haven't inspected every house. If we go into a house and there's lead coming up through,
Yeah,
then we are probably going to have to investigate further back down the line to see how far that lead goes.
to the curb stop.
No, so from the water main itself to the
Yes.
curb stop, we own. From the curb stop into the house, and that's all they're asking for right now, is
Right.
both sides, from our main to the curb stop in the house.
Yes,
And if it's not lead there could be still lead in the house.
understood.
We're not gonna know that, and we're not venturing any further than
But
that.
you're saying that, as to the best of your knowledge, Tom, there is no lead to the curb stop anywhere.
We have yet to find any lead in the city of Newport. I'd be really surprised if we did. I'm not, that being said, they're not counting
Right.
lead goosenecks, which
Right.
you would never know are on there. And what those are is coming off the main, if you were using galvanized was always a rigid pipe.
Yes, yes.
So that the lead gooseneck, usually about 18 inches long or so, made that bend to flatten it out so you could lay that pipe flat. Any road that we have rebuilt in the city of Newport and redid the water lines, we took the lead goosenecks off. Not saying there's still streets out there could be, but the federal government's not counting those.
Okay.
And there's no way you'd know.
Okay,
Side note, do we add zinc orthophosphate?
To the water?
Yeah.
Yes, geez.
so let's say that we find that someone's got a lead pipe in their house. In terms of the consumer compliance report, all we're responsible for is to recognize that they have it and that they've been notified that they have it?
So here's a good question. If you're installing a meter, what do we do? Install it even though there's a lead pipe
Good
and say,
question.
hello, you've got a lead pipe? Or do we say, you might want to bring a
We
plumber
won't be
in?
installing it because I don't think we'd find fittings to adapt to
So you
it.
can't install on the lead pipe.
So if we find one of those, it's a special case anyway.
Right.
So it's key to do the lead and copper first, I think.
I'm hearing your argument, and I agree. So all of that helps me to understand what we're really up against.
So this is the kind of attack that I'm trying to weigh out. I'm hoping by mid to late July, Causeway should be pretty well wrapped up. Corey's going to be my lead on the lead and copper still, and he's very savvy with the computer. So I'm going to have Corey initiating the house visits and tracking all the information. And then Jared, who just flipped from here
Yes.
over, has a plumber's license. Utilizing him and Public Works guys, we're going to try to set up a couple crews weekly to start installing some meters.
Okay. So
That's-
now we're at the question you want to ask, Ann, which is, so we've gotten information by doing the lead and copper inspections about how many, where the meter problems are, right? And then the question, we're back to the question we were asking at the last meeting I was at anyway, which was, so do we try and construct a new list of people who don't have meters and would like to have them? We just start over entirely, or do we try and recreate? I was at NEK-TV last week, and Kelby's dad, Steve, what's his last name? Anyway, we're on film, so it doesn't matter. Anyway, Steve happened to be there, and I was talking about this very question on my show, and Kelby said, "Oh, you should talk to my dad. He's wanted a meter for forever."
Right.
And then, of course, I got into a conversation with the one I knew about, which is that the house Todd's living in, which was his grandmother's house,
Yes.
also doesn't have a meter, and they've been asking for it for forever. So, I know there are people out there who feel frustrated. Like, there's no doubt in my mind about that. I just don't know if there's anywhere where we can find a list of those people.
Well, there's that list, but considering that our residence isn't on it and we first asked in 2019.
You have a list of people who have asked?
Yeah, it was
And how
sent
many-
around,
Sorry,
Corey
I-
found it, right? Or who
Oh,
found
I missed that. I didn't realize that had gone by.
So anyway, and it's got some information. I just think we could use it, but I think you still need to send out.
For sure. I
Right.
want to make sure that if people have been asking for 6 years
Right.
to get a water meter, that they feel like we are responding to them. I thought the case we all made together for that 2 weeks ago was a good one. So if we have a list, I had missed that. I'm sorry, because I'm not keeping up with those emails.
So, yeah.
There were also some weird questions, and one of the other things that we missed last week was Patrick was under the misguided belief that if people hadn't been given a meter, it meant that there were some problems there, and therefore they should just be sort of dropped. They were on the special list. Well, we knew that wasn't true, and we were arguing that. But then it turned out that Patrick had acquired a meter, and the way he acquired the meter was that somehow he magically knew to contact Corey.
No, I was here for that meeting,
Okay.
right.
Because nobody else knew
He
that.
called directly over there because
Yeah.
he knew somebody.
Right, but
I'm hearing the concern, believe me,
Yeah.
Pam. So, and I'm just glad to hear that there is actually a list that might have, 50 or 100 names on
It's
it?
got, I'm opening it right now.
Jason had that list? Is that where it came from?
No,
Was it here in this office on Becky's?
oh, wait, this is the wrong one.
Look at
This
you, you're
is
like
the
a magician, Paul. You
unmetered.
came up with a list that nobody could find.
This is the
Right.
unmetered.
amazing, isn't it?
I thought there was one that came.
The arc of justice
Yeah.
plans slow.
I have
but-
so many emails.
Yeah. Like I said, right through the files.
Someone was going down to Stacy to see if she had a list.
Well, I want to hear about this.
So,
I
okay,
believe
here's,
that's where it's from.
Yeah, I would be surprised if it was from anywhere else, actually. I suspect that it was down in that office.
Don't know, it's not
spoke
sure.
to Jason, he has a list in Google Docs. Okay, so Corey responded to Patrick that Jason has a list in Google Docs of approximately 50 properties waiting for a meter. They didn't actually send it.
Okay, so here, one thing I would like to do
Or did they?
is
Hang on.
I would like Tom to ask Jason to send us a copy of that list in whatever format he's got it. Google Doc is fine. And then I'd like to have a meeting where all of us in this room, including Pam, Lori, and Ann, just walk through those 50 names and say whose names are not here that we know personally should be.
Got it.
You got it already?
Yeah.
And it's 50, roughly?
Who sent it on to us?
Patrick's mailed it to us.
Okay.
This is great. All right.
No, I saw it.
It's called Free Water Meters 2016. Those are all crossed off. So of the uncrossed off ones,
This is a good one for me. I can't say date.
yeah, I mean, there's 778 people, but you got to go through and calculate the crossed off ones, and
Send it to me again.
so
And I'll do that.
it's
I need something mindless to do.
Thank you
Did
very
you
much.
hear the last half, which is I need something mindless to do?
All right, so I think that could really help us actually, because I've been hearing about this mysterious list for months,
Right.
right? And now at least we got a place to
Get the
start.
copper and,
But
yeah,
it's- so
lead, we
it's-
can do it.
Here's the interesting thing is it's got people on this list that requested meters as
What?
recently as October of 24.
Interesting.
But there's also people on here that requested meters back in
2009.
2016, 2017 that
And do we know if any of those people have magically had meters installed like
they're
Heather?
That-
not crossed off.
That-
That's all I can
and
tell you.
we can double check that because I've got the list of all the unmetered.
Good.
Because
So,
that's why I said
It's great,
I'm not on the list, and I should be on the list because we
because you
started in-
requested it last fall.
Yeah, but
and you were such a difficult
2019.
person, they decided
Well,
not
way
to
back
put you on
then,
the
right.
list.
Paul, question. So this list came from Stacy,
No.
or did it come from Jason? And who'd you contact when you?
This came.
Patrick did it, right?
Patrick did all this.
No, but I'm saying when you.
Oh, when you asked for one in
when you asked for it,
2019.
Who'd you go through?
So, my wife came in. The first request was actually I did only the last request. So when the guys came in my house to do the lead and copper, he said, I want a meter installed.
I can tell you, I'm sure that one never went anywhere.
Yeah, so my wife, whenever she would come in to pay something,
She requested it downstairs.
downstairs. Yeah.
As a water guy, this has to have driven you nuts for the last six
So anyway.
years. I'm just saying, a little empathy here is in order.
What do you think he's on the committee?
So, okay,
So you think it came from Jason originally, that list for the Patrick got?
that's what Corey said, that Jason was keeping it on Google Docs. And then the correspondence between Patrick and Corey was that they needed to convert it from Google Docs to, the real quick read I'm doing here, is that they needed to convert it to Excel so that it was usable. Then Patrick sent around this Excel version
Yeah.
to the group.
Okay, so here's my process suggestion, because you know me, I don't do any of the detailed stuff in this because I can't think that way. But process is the stuff I like to think about. And if we're going to send a note that says we want to go to every home that has lead and copper, and check for lead and copper, every home that hasn't been checked, right? One possibility is instead of trying to sort that list, we could do one-sided sheet of paper and send it to everybody, and half of it could be about here's how to identify, if you haven't yet done this inspection, we will be in touch, or you can be, I don't know how we want to say that, but something about that, right? And then a second one that says, if you do not have a meter, we are recreating the list of those who want to be early on the list.
Email this email address.
Exactly. And we do it
If
to
you don't
everybody
have- if
with
you
one
don't
mailing,
have
doesn't have to be
access to
sorted.
email, call this phone number.
Is there a reason that wouldn't work?
My one question is, the email says Tonga, and apparently it does.
No, the email was made in my name. The email is actually Newport Water Department. That's what we were using for the lead and copper, at Gmail. That's what we were sending around to the flyers. That's all we use that for.
Because a lot of people go by who they know, not necessarily what an email says unless there's a direct link. So you get the letter and it says, email the water department. They'll say, oh, that's Tom Bernier. So they go to their computer or their phone or whatever, and they plug in Tom and he pops up because he's already in their system. That's a way to lose it, right? Because a lot of
That's
people
possible.
apparently have emailed you in the past and it hasn't, maybe it's on that list, but they never heard anything back.
Right, because there was no capacity built into how you respond to them.
Okay.
Exactly.
I see.
We're sort of going down a rabbit hole.
Right.
We know who is metered. We know who is not metered. We don't know who's done copper and lead. So let's.
So you want to just
figure
go back to that and start?
And if we do a mailing, I think you should do a separate mailing to all the unmetered people
Okay,
and have 3 letters. Unmetered with potential copper and lead, copper and lead only, and unmetered because we know what is
And this-
copper and lead.
Which is what my response was, is that keep them separate so that we don't delay
Yeah.
lead and copper.
I agree entirely.
And I think the lead and copper needs to be a stern letter because they're putting our system in jeopardy of violation. They need to know that per the city's water ordinance, there could be civil consequences.
Is it a letter or is it just a list and we start knocking on doors? What's the letter say? Does it just say, please come see my house? Because we
I
already know
think we
their
do
house.
both.
Yeah.
It says, someone will be knocking on your door. You need to let them
Make
in,
an appointment.
or you will be in violation
Right.
of civil code.
Make an appointment,
Right.
respond to this letter, or somebody will be knocking on your door.
Right.
And that was what the first letter said. It didn't say the violation piece, but it
Yeah.
says somebody will be knocking on your door.
And we just have to make sure somebody actually does.
And that's what I was saying about 2 guys, an hour a day.
Yeah.
Just send 2 guys, you got an hour.
Yeah.
Hit as many houses as you can.
And we know from Patrick's, GPS where the targets are to start for the heavy hitting. But let's see if we can segregate out these lists
Yeah.
and
Is
create
this-
them, because this is easy enough to do.
I know the answer because I know how to look for the difference, but in your judgment, does this have to be seen by a professional? Like could we train a corps of 10 volunteers to knock on doors for us? Or is there something in the code or the requirement that says that it has to be a professional who does it?
If you go down that road, I would highly recommend that you just be the second to Tom's staff's first. Because
Right.
I think you can look and you might overlook something that's crucial. Have somebody who knows.
Right, and we
be
want them
there.
thinking about the meter question at the same time
Yeah.
quietly
You
too.
Yeah.
can't just send them there,
Yeah.
one person.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah,
So
so
the second
you
one's
have to
gotta be
send
2
to,
people.
if you can get a volunteer to be the second, then
Okay,
that is
so-
gonna,
Just so you know,
Develops more teams.
I think I could in fact come up with at least a couple, and honestly, probably more volunteers to back that up. So you wouldn't have to send your guys doubled up. And we could just,
That's-
what I would
that's
do
the
is not say an
efficient
hour a day, because it takes your head a while to get into it and out of it again. I would say, can you dedicate a day a week or a half day a week or whatever to doing just this? Because then once you're in it, it goes much more quickly.
And if you want to have fun, have the second person be PD.
Yeah, I don't think so. But I got a couple of
Sorry, I couldn't resist.
I got a couple of folks in town who I think would be pleased to be asked to participate in something like this. So if you all can
the
help us.
question is what the vetting might be, because they're going with a city employee in a potentially touchy situation. What type of coverage, insurance coverage you'd have?
Yeah, it's a worthwhile question.
Yeah, it's a very worthwhile question, knowing some of the people you'd meet at the door.
Well, I mean, or even something as simple as a slip and fall. If they're a volunteer, are they on our workers' comp or,
Yeah.
So yes, we would need to ask that question.
And I realize that hope you realize I was joking, but there probably are some residences
Yeah, you need,
that you probably will want to consider that.
There probably will be some.
yeah.
So,
Okay.
so back on, so the meter installations.
Yeah.
That's how, I believe we should approach it that way. A letter for meters, a letter for lead and copper, and a letter for both. Lead and copper should be very stern, pointing out the ordinance, civil violation, so on. We can start gently with the meters, but eventually the meters will have to get sterner. Now, putting the meters in. I've contacted Dave Harris with Tie Sales. He is willing to come up here with Paul Whittemore from New England Backflow. He will bring information with him on Tie Sales financing program for meter installations. Paul Whittemore will brainstorm with us on if his company is a fit. They can meet, the three of us, on July 10th. If that's a
Hot date.
possibility.
You were gonna try and take vacation in here somewhere. When are you gonna?
It's
You go to the end of July usually?
Yeah, it's more like the 17th. July 10th.
Yeah.
Next meeting.
Yeah, I
I'll
can
just set up whatever time works best for them, Paul.
I will have to do it before 2 o'clock, so I am texting him right now.
Is an hour enough? Let me conversation.
If we can keep Dave on track, yeah.
My preference would be either 10 a.m. or 1 p.m. And I'll put both on my calendar.
All right, so I'm gonna ask for 10 a.m. because 1 p.m. is cutting it close for me.
Okay. And then if I have to get, I have a meeting at 11, but I could either stay over and go to that meeting a little later. You won't need me and I can duck out.
Yeah, I mean, we'll try to hit the,
That's great news.
we just don't want, I think it's important that we keep it to the five of us so that we can bust through stuff.
Move
We're
on.
not making decisions, we're
Yep,
not.
right with you. You got it.
All right, we'll see if he responds.
Great.
So that's the progress I've made on the meter side of things.
So can we back up one moment
Yeah.
then? I'm hearing Jennifer saying that her mindless, she needs something to keep her mind occupied.
Yep.
That task is pretty significant. She's going to try and come up with that list for us.
Yep.
Right? What I need from you over the next week or so until we meet again is to draft the letter that is going to go out so that I can review it. Get it to you. Probably with an attorney, just to be sure that I'm
If
not
I write it,
opening
you're
us up.
gonna want to.
We will be showing up, and the beatings will continue until. So, anyway, Paul, if you could draft some initial language for us to work with, I'd be happy to work with the attorneys.
It won't take long.
That's what I hoped. And then we can talk about the process by which we get the actual mailing out. That is something that volunteers can sit here around a table and do over a pizza party or something.
Yeah.
So just a question. So I know we're gonna meet with Dave and this company to look into the financing.
Yep.
But once we initiate this and send it out there and if we start getting a slew of people, should we put something out there that, I mean, obviously we're gonna try to start putting some meters in, but if we start getting a couple hundred people calling, getting on the list, there's just no way we're gonna
Right. Well,
maintain putting in that
Yeah,
amount
no,
of meters in that short amount.
So what I'm hearing,
So-
Tom, please correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm hearing is we have a list already of, how many names did you say from Jason?
50 supposedly.
Roughly, right? We have a list of 50. We can go through it and add another, probably 15, 20 names among us of people we know personally who wanted to be on the list. And we've got our first 70 right there. And I don't think we advertise anything about that until we know how we're going to finance the rest.
Right.
We know we've got enough in the budget this year to do roughly 100 installations. We got 50 grand in the budget. So we know they're going to cost us somewhere around $500 a pop.
Yeah. So unless I'm wrong, I'm only drafting a lead and copper letter.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
We're not doing a meter letter yet.
Right.
All we're doing is looking at the meter list that we already have,
Okay.
adding to it if we can perfect it in any way, and then we'll reach out to those folks first and say, we've got the $50,000 to get yours done.
Yeah.
We'd like to move on that, right? We'll just, and then, once we get the financing in place so we can really take this thing and run with it, that's when we do a broader letter and say who's left on the list.
Right.
And we'll have a lot more information about that based on the inspections that we've done for lead and copper.
Exactly.
What we need to do is see if NEMRIC can produce address labels.
I bet it can. I would be really surprised if it can.
Yeah.
It has to be able to because it's printing on
Well,
those
Excel
bills
can too.
that go into a pocket window, right?
Yeah.
So I know it can.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can always, again, we can always export it to as Excel. It's probably how they do it, and then run an Excel mail merge on it.
All right. So
That's great. That actually feels like I can begin to see the forest through the trees here. Or maybe it's the trees I'm looking for.
I just have a quick question.
Oh, you're dancing back there.
Okay. So this is really, I think this came out of another meeting, but I just want to ask this before we move into something else. So I think the last meeting, there was conversation about what to do with people who haven't paid their bill. And I'm going to tell you a quick story, and he'll hate me for this, but my son came home last week, and the person who's renting his house had a pink notice on the door that said, "You will be cut off on this date for non-payment of water and sewer."
His house here in Newport?
In Troy, in North Troy.
We didn't
Not Newport, in North Troy.
Okay.
And I haven't asked him for a copy of that yet. Unfortunately, it was just a miscommunication of his mailing address in South Carolina and who was supposed to get it, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, he walked in, paid the bill, no big deal. Except it freaked his tenant out. And I think it came, the reason I was so intent on this was because I think that was the question one meeting ago of, can we actually do that? Well, we have proof that it was done.
We know we can do
I
it.
have done it.
So we just, but it's not something
Yeah.
we've done. We
Right.
just haven't done it.
We did it all the time.
Okay,
The guys hated when we sent bank slips out
yeah,
because,
People respond to it.
right, people
Yeah.
respond to it.
Did you actually turn it off if they didn't respond?
We sure did.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that notice was pretty like, yep, be paid or, or else.
Threatens and does not carry through.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's the question.
So I do think, Paul, I feel like I've got appetite for that. So, I mean, I'm not interested
Well, and
in
that's
meeting-
what I will be, I'm not at that point yet, but so John I'm getting close enough to a point where John and I need to sit down and work on this together.
on the ordinance
On
stuff.
the ordinance stuff for the statutes and so on and so forth. I mean, I still need the specs up. That email I sent, I need those because I want to make sure that one, these reference our spec by title, and two, that some of the stuff that's mentioned in the ordinance isn't being wrongly represented in the specifications. Because it's easier to change a specification than it is an ordinance. So I definitely need, and I can take a hard copy if you've got an extra hard copy of the,
I'll just email it to you.
perfect. Yeah, please.
So what else, for somebody like me who glazes over when I see the word ordinance, what should I know about the work you're trying to do on this?
Well, one, I'm trying to make it understandable.
So that I will no longer glaze over.
So if you start scrolling,
Okay.
you need to, can you open that in Word,
I don't know. Hold on.
please? Because that will show my edits, because this isn't really going to mean anything without seeing edits.
There you go.
Turn it to a single page view, please.
You maybe be moving on.
And go to review up top, down in your menu bar.
Oh, up here.
Yep, go to review.
Yeah.
Track change.
Show comments.
Show comments and then turn the track changes on. Why are we not seeing the bar over on the right hand side?
Well, the bar's on the right-hand side, but there's nothing.
Turn the reviewing pane on. You were just down a little bit.
Wait, sorry. I'm
You
missing.
keep going over top. But
Over here, you mean?
Different down.
Down to,
Oh, right there. Sorry. Yep.
All right, perfect.
Look at that. I did it without Carter. Little round of applause for the mayor. No Christmas, Sean. No Carter. Finnegan.
All by yourself. right?
Well, no, I had a lot of help. Okay, where do you want to be?
All right, so you will start to see, if you scroll down a little bit, you will start to see that I have expanded the index so we can really see where stuff is. That was one of the first things I did, which is not much, but it's easier to find what you're looking for in the ordinance. Now keep going down.
Yeah.
Oh, go back up a little bit.
Yep.
Sorry, right there. I added a lot of the state statutes
Oh,
as a reference. So now you can keep going down.
yeah.
General provisions. Why are the revisions not tracking on the left-hand side of the
It's not
page?
moving at all.
They should be tracking together.
You keep on scrolling, you're scrolling down on the revisions. No, it's not moving, is it? I thought for a while it
Click
was
on it.
on the main page.
Click on the line in the main document. See if it picks it up.
No, it's not moving the revisions.
Yeah, because the revisions are all the way down in, it's showing the revisions in section 6, not in section 1 where we are. Show, yeah, all markups. Now that helps. So everything underlined is stuff I've been changing. But it's still not tracking. At least I can. All right, so definitions.
Okay, no, look, now I get it on the right. Paul, that's what
Okay,
you
so
want.
close the left-hand one then.
Yes.
All right.
For the record, I did that one by myself.
Congratulations.
Thanks. A little affirmation never hurt you.
Yeah.
So
I don't think
this,
the rest of us could have done it.
Okay, now you're laying it on.
Well, yeah, well, you have the computer, so, yeah.
All right, where are we?
so this is just a lot of formatting stuff so people could actually just understand what word we're talking about. There's a few changes. It says whether or not. It just says, so just whether, simple things, just cleaning up.
Yep.
That blue one is actually one that is in the existing ordinance, but in the document Tom sent me, John just hadn't accepted the changes after it was voted on. So I will take care of that. So keep going down. This is all a lot of cleanup stuff. All right. This one. Yeah, I cleaned up who the tax collector was.
Yep.
There's a lot of, keep going. All right, now we're getting into abbreviations. This is boring. Keep going. All right, water meters. So this, so I got rid of because this is talking about, it says furnished, so it would imply that even on new construction, even though deeper in the document it says new construction wouldn't be, so I just put acquired from, so all meters have to be gotten through the city, whether they're a free meter or a chargeable meter is a different story, but the meter has to be purchased through the city.
Okay.
all meters shall be located. Keep going. All right, so here is where I ran into a little heartburn. So when a meter is considered running fast, that means if 5 gallons ran through it, it registered 7. That's a fast meter, right? So I really had an issue with C, because that says that, okay, your meter's running slow, and you know what, we discovered this and we're gonna back bill you for 6 months. Well, where I come from, it would be the city's responsibility to keep track of meters. And I mean, we had this one phenomenal lady that when she printed bills could tell you within percentages, and if there was a meter tracking slow, we would change it.
Yep.
We would not back bill. That's the responsibility of the city, to say that we're.
Does that make sense?
I'm a one person thing, a one person opinion, right? I don't feel that's right, but the task force can decide.
It makes sense to me.
I have to admit, we started reviewing this back with the other water committee, and it was one of the things where he sat there and said, really,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
I mean, you don't have a problem with this, do you, Tom?
No.
No, I mean, I think it's rational on the face of it.
and so C and D are both
Yeah.
the same thing. Meter accessibility, you'll see that I added that underline the bottom line. If access is denied and or there is a failure of the customer to respond to correspondence, Article 12, which is the civil part of this
We'll
ordinance.
go over below, it's Article 12 of this document.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Remote readers. This was, I don't even think this is relevant, Tom. Everything that I crossed out there. I mean, we're doing remote reads on everything, right? Anything new we would put in.
Oh, anything.
So I think that's in there that we don't need it. It's,
Do we have any that are not remote read?
We may still have some touchpads. I'd have to check with Jason.
yeah.
That would be interesting to find out.
But still, a touchpad, you're at the outside of the
You're
building.
outside the building.
Yeah.
You're just,
Okay, so as far as you know, nobody has to go inside to look at a meter anymore.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
all right, so 4.06, this is interesting. So, you'll see my question. Where did this
Whoa.
come from and how long has this been in here? Because this is a poop storm if we try to enforce it. So we've got to talk about this one, we've got to think about this one, but it is in the ordinance right now.
So this brings me to a question that I had, because I was reflecting on this. Is there any precedent for telling a customer who wants a meter that we can't currently afford, that they can put a meter in at their own expense that we certify? It would have to be our meter, and we would have to know what the expense is, right, in advance. That they could we could install a meter at their expense and then deduct a portion of their bill for a period of time thereafter to pay them back for it.
You've done it with Campbell Cottages, the expansion.
As far as putting in the water main.
Yeah, they take a surcharge.
I mean, we would still have to buy the meter. They would pay the city for the meter.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Right, because.
Yes,
you
they would
can't
pay
go
the
buy from
expense
high
that the
sales.
city incurs
So- oh, right,
up front, right?
Right.
You know, the problem with it is, like, if, let's say that 300 customers chose to do that, we're actually, I don't know what we would deduct from, right? Because now we're giving up future income that we've set rates based on.
Well, I mean, it's, say it's a $500 bill, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Write it off.
if you reduced, took $5 a quarter off their bill in 10 quarters,
No, $5 a quarter.
or
would be
$5,
$20 a year.
sorry, right.
Right, you'd have to take
20.
50 bucks a quarter, would be $100 a year, and it would be paid off in 5
5
years.
years, yep.
And if
So
there-
if 300 people took advantage of that, that's 50,
300 times 50,
it's 15,000 a quarter
Quarter.
that you would be,
foregoing,
yeah.
which you might be able to make back out of the capital expense line, the 5% capital expense. That would be an interesting question for the lawyers, right?
Yeah.
If we could pay that out of our own capital expense savings, it would accelerate the process. Like if Kitty and I didn't have a meter, we do, but if we didn't, I think we would probably be happy to front the cost of $400 or $500 to get one installed
Right.
if we knew that we'd get it coming back to us over the following months or years. So it seems like that ought to be something that we could discuss with the attorneys and find out if there's anything that's impeding our ability to do that.
Wasn't there a conversation last meeting about everybody on the water and sewer or something just paying $500 to the city and getting rid of all the deficit? I mean, I'm kind of
Yeah.
half,
Patrick.
a little
That
half.
was Patrick,
Yeah, but it's kind of the same, it's kind of the same where if somebody wants something and they can
Yeah.
pay the $500.
I mean, you
for
should
the
be
year.
able, legally, you should be able to do it, because technically the co-op did it on their electric, their solar panels.
Yeah.
You invested X amount of money, you got a credit back on your use.
So, right, there's two questions. Is it legal to do it that way? And can NEMRIC track it?
Well, that's what I was gonna say, it'd be a Chip and Stacy question. How?
Because if
how would you
NEMRIC can't
manage-
track it,
How would you
that's a
manage
big
It's a
issue.
nightmare, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why can't we track it even if NEMRIC can't?
Because you just
It's
threw
a lot.
another ball in the air
Yeah, it's just a lot to manage.
with short staff.
But I suspect NEMRIC can track it. There ought to be a way that you can
Right.
notate it.
We still show the line item for Campbell's cottages that were the
Yeah,
line.
but, yeah, and you were talking
Yeah,
maybe 30
but
customers.
yeah.
And some, it might, but probably less than that, because some of them opted to just pay the full bill up front, whereas others had taken a bill.
I've never seen an item filled in when I've scanned the, this is the printout sheets. It's not on what I'm dealing with. Yeah.
Okay, I will ask those questions, because that could boost us pretty fast, right? And we wouldn't have to go borrow the money at interest
Right.
to do it. Effectively,
Should be able to.
they're loaning us their money at zero interest, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And everybody wins.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
And the other question I promised I would ask the attorneys, somebody help me, my brain really is fried this week.
This apropos of-
Oh, it was the language on the letter.
Yes. But I gotta write a letter
The
first.
Paul, let me in or I'll blow your house down letter. Okay, I got it. Want to keep going?
Yep. So now we're into capacity allocation and connections. So you'll see there's changes here. On this one in particular, I didn't actually delete all that stuff. I moved it into a new section and created a new section. I got into a little more detail about acceptance of a water main. And this is one of the things that I need to cross-reference with our specifications as far as the city accepting ownership of a newly constructed water main, make sure that they jive. And maybe this ends up getting deleted and we just have it in the specs. But I at least have to reference the specs.
You got to know where it's going to be. It's either
Right.
in this document somewhere else or it's in
Right, because currently it's in here, but it might not need to be, right? Reserve capacity, some wording issues in here, and if you keep scrolling, there's more. I get into the application, adequately supply without jeopardizing. I beef that up. I mean, because you don't want people arguing, well, you can supply the water. Well, yeah, but then we can't supply fire demand, right? You can't be depleting tanks if the system can't keep up. So I strengthened that. I renamed that title a little bit too, that it was a
Which one?
connection, that title up top, connection and
Oh, I see.
allocation application process.
Okay.
So down in here somewhere, whoa, too fast.
Sorry.
There's I put in, keep going back up. Process submittal. Somewhere in here I put in, maybe it's down, sorry. Well, my eyeballs ain't keeping up, so I'm just gonna tell you what it says. So I put in the language that if a user is going to increase or decrease, and this, I just said entity, because that could be person or business. If they're going to increase or decrease their usage by greater than 10%, there needs to be an allocation application submitted, so that I just pulled 10% out of the air. It's in there as a placeholder. We can talk about what percentage, but say Columbia does a process that increases their flow by 30% and they don't tell us, we don't have the allocation for it. We need it in our ordinance that, hey, you were supposed to apply for that. And the way it was written, there was no teeth to it.
Is this just commercial, or does this?
No, I mean, it could be residential too. So say somebody has a single bedroom home and they turn it into a 5-bedroom. That's going to increase.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
How would you account for a house fire?
You would,
Well,
you're talking about planned.
I'm
planned
talking about
increase for allocation.
planned allocations.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're saying, I want to build an ADU on my house,
Yeah.
and it's going to add this many fixtures.
Right.
And that's, more than 20% of what's already
Being
increased over
used at
what's
that.
already-
Wouldn't that come though in their requests, whatever you call it?
That's where you would trigger it, right on the.
Yeah.
That's where you would trigger it, but you need an ordinance to back it up.
Yes,
That makes sense.
yes.
So that is where I have, and what page are you on?
Oh, I scrolled down a long way because I stopped seeing the red.
Yeah. All right, so if you stop seeing the red, I'm through page 18.
So you haven't gotten to Article 12 yet, the one that you referenced above, which is.
No, I have not, but you can,
Is it
you
already-
can go look at it.
There is an Article 12 already?
Yeah, keep going. Page 37, I think. Oh, back up.
Yeah,
Sorry.
just
One that comes up
Right
regularly.
there.
there, yeah.
Penalties, violations of this ordinance. And somewhere in there, it goes through the expense of loss or damage, written notice, satisfactory.
Right now it says you can penalize up to $500 per offense.
Yep.
But this is where you wanted to say, the penalty is if you've ignored 3
Well,
pink
somewhere
slips or
in
something,
there-
we can cut it off.
Maybe it's not 12. Keep going down. Somewhere in
Was
there
it above
says,
12.02? Hold on.
it says if you don't let people in.
Yes.
there.
There you
There
go.
you go.
It started at the beginning of 12.
Yep. No person shall deny access
Yeah?
set forth in this ordinance.
Who's the hearing officer?
Lori.
I'm sorry.
Lori.
I don't know that we have a hearing officer.
Until March, I was a, I think I still am.
Are you?
I don't know who.
I think I'm still something, what is it called? The grand juror?
It's probably something that should be appointed at the board, at the
Yeah,
council
It's
level.
not on the list, though.
No,
Right, so,
which is remarkable, given the number of appointments we make on that list.
You know, maybe the shingle shifter could do it as well.
You can't say that on TV.
so yeah, so,
Oh, the purveyor of coal.
Yeah,
Purveyor of
Yeah.
coal.
so it is clearly detailed that if you deny access,
You owe money, but what isn't detailed here is we'll turn off your service, right? I don't see that.
right, that is, I'm getting there.
Yeah, right. So
I've got-
that's, your
I've
intended
got 12 more
consequence
pages to go.
is not
Yeah.
a fine. Your intended consequence is your water gets turned off,
Right,
which I think will be highly motivating.
but for teeth right now, to get this lead and copper done, we have that.
Yes.
So we do have some teeth.
Yep.
Because they are denying us access.
except that this is not probably going to be adopted before we have to get.
No, this is existing.
Oh, it is.
This is existing.
It's
Okay.
already here.
This is our existing, because I had.
So what we would have to do, if that's where we want to go, is when we send out that letter, it will have to state that it is the city's practice to do the following when a person is in violation. And spell it out.
Based on.
And then when people don't respond, then we send the effective equivalent of a pink slip,
Yep.
right? That says not we're turning your water off, but we're about to dun you $500 for violation.
Right.
No, actually, the hearing officer has to determine what that penalty would be, not to exceed 500.
Well, I
So
would-
he's got to have parameters to determine, or she has to have parameters to
I
determine.
think we just make a simple parameter that's the same for all of these. Council takes action on it, and the hearing officer or the enforcement person, Lori's gonna,
I'm a grant, there are
Take a
3 of
baseball
us
bat
until
and go visit.
2027, and that's supposed to be part of our.
that's
job,
hilarious. I love it.
Is to hear, you know,
Okay.
these things.
Okay, well,
I just made that up.
I think
Maybe I'll move.
I'm looking forward to you getting to the bottom of this one, because I do think that what will motivate, yesterday, I have a friend who we helped to support considerably, and she got a notice, not in this town, but a notice in another city, that she was 2 months behind on her electric, it would be turned off yesterday. She'd ignored all previous notices, and all of a sudden I got a phone call saying, I can't pay this, right? And it didn't happen until she got a pink letter that said, your service is cut off tomorrow.
That, we use pink paper too. That was helpful. I mean, it's,
Color.
The universal, I'm in a deep, deep hole,
Yes.
you're a side.
I mean, so when I
Cover myself.
get the specs from Tom and when I can cross-reference and make sure that we're not spelling out things in an ordinance that should be spelled out in the specification, that they're covered. So I won't go too far down this road. How are our specifications adopted? Does the council adopt them or
They did.
They did, okay. But those are gonna be a lot, because ordinances you have to warn for the public to vote on.
It's either 2001 or 2005.
Right. Okay. So we should
Okay.
put as much in spec as possible.
Y'all are making progress here, so I'm really grateful. The question is, can we name our next meeting time and all go home? Because it's too hot to sit here in this room any longer. Normally, the next meeting time would be Thursday night next week, is that correct?
Yeah, that's July the 3rd.
July the 3rd, because,
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm gonna be stone cold drunk and getting ready for my party like I always do.
Yeah.
Sounds great. You can start.
For the record, I never drink anything. That was a joke, 'cause I can't remember the last beer I drank.
What a shame. I was gonna say I'll be right there with you, but I don't drink it.
So, yeah, so I can't do it. I could do it the 30th, the 1st, or the 2nd. Or the following week would actually be better.
So we go 2 weeks out from now.
Yeah.
2 weeks is working well for me.
Can you do Thursday the 10th?
That's that day with Dave
That's
Harris.
a day with Dave, so that's fine.
Yeah. I mean, I know that's a night that works for John already, and Carl's been able to make those typically. So, and I'd like to stay off Wednesdays during Wednesdays on the waterfront,
Yeah, we all would.
because Pam will boycott if we don't.
Well, they'll probably cheer. Much happier if the camera isn't here.
No, I have to tell you, Pam, I think it's fabulous that this camera's here.
All right, so 6:30.
Warts and all.
And then I gotta put Dave on the calendar.
So we're deciding the 10th.
Yes, and we will not meet on the 3rd,
Good.
okay? I'm gonna take that off my calendar. So that's our next meeting.
What
The
is
10th.
it, sorry?
The 10th, the 6:30.
All right, and I'm gonna change that on the calendar here, so it changes it online also.
Are we done? Have you declared this meeting over?
I declare this meeting officially over.